Well, welcome back to Mill. Um, I'm angry. I'm embarrassed. I'm undone. I'm less of a man. I'm stupid. You're smart. I'm You're handsome. I'm not very good looking. I just shot an hour and 5 minute video, chainsaw milling 102 or 101 part two. Milled a slab. Talked about every aspect of chainsaw milling that could possibly be covered in a 1 hour video. And I didn't have my mic on my hat. Now, I thought when I figured that out, when I put my earmuffs on, that it was still going to record audio. And it didn't. It came out silent. So it was basically useless. You got to see me mill this big, monster, beautiful slab and then hear every aspect of chainsaw milling, from chains to mills to saws to you name it. And it didn't record any audio. So I deleted it because I'm punishing myself. I am not going to do a voiceover on it in the future, which someday I'll be able to do. I am actually going to start a new video for those of you who want to see milling only, don't want to learn about this stuff and my vast knowledge of chainsaw milling. I would suggest that you sign off. You can fast forward if you want to the milling, but we're going to start with filing a chain, because on this cut, although it did come out great, um, I used almost a whole tank of fuel, and in the cut before, I only used half a tank of fuel. So what that tells me, and I had to use a lot of pressure, what that tells me is that my chain either hit something, what I don't know, there was no nails or anything in it. Something happened to my chain between the first cut and the second cut that is not right. So I'm going to fix that. So we're going to file 56-inch, 168 drive link bar and chain, and I will show you, I don't know, either all of it or some of it. Maybe I'll just show you some of it and then pause you until we go make the cut. But I am going to try to add in what I put into the video in the video before, which was information on everything from tools you need to chains to mixed gas to saws to mills to you name it. So we're going to start with filing a chain. 10 degree. We're going to file it at 10 degrees or thereabouts, 8, 12, doesn't really matter. As long as it's down around 10. I went into extensively why. I will probably talk some while I'm filing about why. This chain, make sure your view's good. Got all my stuff in the way here. I'll just have you watch from here, I think. I'll bring you in close when I think something's important or I want to show you a tooth. This chain feels dull. It's not sharp. I will show you also something that is a telltale sign of a chain getting dull, even though I thought this was sharp. And like I said, there's a good chance that I hit something. Either it hit the mill or it went through something in the log that it didn't like. I don't know whether there was some hidden dirt or whatever. Usually in pine, this does not happen. But when you look at the top of the chain here, you can see my finger there. You see the buildup on the chain? When you're putting plenty of oil to your bar and chain, I have an auxiliary oiler and a heavy duty oiler on the saw, both. It puts plenty of oil to the chain. These teeth should be clean when you get done, and they're not. They're dirty. You can see that little buildup on each tooth. That did not happen in the first cut. That is not by chance. That is because these teeth are not sharp, and they were kind of burning their way through the wood. And that's what happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark a tooth, and we're going to start filing. I use, in case it's a question, Valorbe, Valorbe files, which are Swiss-made files that I think are the best. I do not count strokes. I file by eye at 10 degrees. I will rip through this chain as fast as I can. There are two important components to filing a chain: the side cutter and the top plate. I'll show you that in a minute. I can tell by eye what 10 degrees is. 10 degrees is the optimum rip chain, or what I consider the optimum rip chain angle. Can you just run a regular crosscut chain? Sure, you can. Does it cut as good? No, because it's not designed for ripping. The tooth fleam, which is what it's called, and I'll show you that in a minute, is not designed for ripping. It's designed for cross-cutting. And ripping is a completely different animal. What should your angle be? You can file anywhere, let's just say between 10 and 0. 0 would give you the smoothest, slowest cut. 10 gives you a smooth, faster cut. You could file at 15, you could file at 12, you could file at 8. You're not going to see a whole lot of difference there. The most important part is that your cutting edge and your side cutters are sharp, and that it's somewhere around 10 degrees. And I'll show you why in 1 second. Just let me get a little bit into this chain. I don't know how long it takes me to file a 56, but once I get my kind of rhythm going, I can do it pretty quick. I know that this is going to be dead air here, and you're going to be like, oh my God, what a shitty video. If you are not here to learn about chainsaw milling, then sign off now. I don't really care if you learn about chainsaw milling or not, except for the people that want to hang on and learn. What I do know is that this particular saw in this chain will cut that log in 6 minutes and half a tank of fuel when this chain's sharp. And that did not happen on the second cut. It took about 8 minutes, and it burned almost the whole tank of fuel. File is not. This is a brand new file too. It just doesn't seem that sharp. Almost like I put away an older one. There's no magic to this. Anybody who uses guides and stuff like that, it's just foolish. There's just no magic to it. All we're trying to do is get the side cutter and the top plate sharp. I think I'll file one whole side, then I'll show you what is going on. Wow, some of these teeth are really hard. And when I do mill this log, finally, when I get to milling, you will get to see the difference. Well, you won't get to see the difference because we'll rate the difference by fuel and time, because you won't get to see the difference because you won't get to see the previous cut. Which came out good, by the way. What I'm trying to do right now is make sure that my gullet's filed out and that my top plate is sharp. About a third of the file sticking out the top. Some of my friends that are creators right now are saying, oh my God, Bill, please stop. Oh my God, this is, you want to show your corgi in the backyard and stuff like that. And that keeps people tuned in. Well, this is a video for people who want to learn about chainsaw milling. Nothing more than that. And when people say, oh my God, it takes me an hour to file a chain, well, it doesn't take me an hour. I can probably file this whole chain in maybe, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes maybe. If I just keep going. For some reason, this file is not cutting great. I'll show you what a tooth looks like in a second. Before I spin, yeah, I'm almost done. Before I spin around and do the other side, I'm almost done with half the blue marks coming up right here. What I know is that I don't want to go through the experience of the last pass again. There is no reason to count strokes. We're not hogging off a ton of material like it. This chain is damaged. We're just sharpening the teeth. We're not really removing any metal and making these teeth shorter at this point. I know it looks like I'm taking a lot of strokes. We're really not shortening these teeth. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm back to my Bluetooth. I'm going to show you what a tooth looks like. I'll take you out of the holder here. Show you what a tooth looks like. We'll talk about the rake and the fleam, and then I will pause you guys and I will go through the rest of this. So if you look down on the top of these teeth, there's my blue mark. Here's my next one. These are filed at 10 degrees. This one right here is a good example of 10 degrees. I'll get you a close-up of what the inside of that tooth looks like, if I can. Where's my camera? Hopefully you can see that that tooth is all nice and filed. And then this is called fleam on a tooth, the 10 degrees. And then we also have rake. Rake is the amount that the leading edge of the cutting edge is leaning forward or backward of the bottom of the tooth or parallel to the line of the blade here. So if you look at this tooth, you can see the C in this tooth. That is your rake angle. The amount that this tip is ahead of the bottom of that tooth is how much rake there is. The more C, the more aggressive. The less C, the longer it stays sharp, but the slower it cuts, or the smaller the chip that it takes. I want something that looks exactly like this. This is a good medium rake, especially on a 56-inch bar. This is going to be a horrible video. I know it. I apologize. I did a great video a minute ago. What happens when you're cutting with a chainsaw mill? This fleam angle is a shear angle to the tooth. So when this tooth goes through the wood, it kicks over like this. And when it gets to the next one and the fleam angle is the opposite way, it kicks over like that. And then this one kicks like this, and that one kicks like that. And that's what gives you a raggedy cut. The more fleam angle, like on a crosscut chain, which is like 25 or 30, the more fleam angle, the more this chain does this, and the more raggedy a cut that you're going to get. What I have found, I'll put you back in the holder for a second, and then I'm going to pause you and I'm going to rip to the other side. What I have found through extensive milling and testing both angles or all angles, and I have done videos. You guys can go back and watch them if you want. I have done videos on milling with a crosscut chain versus a rip chain and back-to-back cuts. I think I did that actually in a big, huge hemlock that was like 24 feet long, and then compared the finish and the time and everything else. The rip configuration itself, designed for cutting, If you picture a log as a bunch of straws like this, okay, bunch of straws going down the log, and your rip chain is cutting across those straws, and it's taking out little teeny pieces, cutting down like this in this direction, where a crosscut chain is cutting across the straws this way. Your rip chain is cutting along like this. That's not noodling. Noodling, your chips look like this. Okay, that is noodling. These are big, huge noodles, is what they're called. That comes from cutting down into the straws and cutting along the straws as you're cutting. And as your tooth gets into the straw, it pulls along the straw and cuts out big noodles like that. When you're cutting a slab, you're cutting across the end of the straws. So if you can picture the end of the slab, this is where the straws come out right here. And they run all the way down. And we're cutting across the end of the straws. That creates a very fine sawdust, not a chip like cutting this way where you're cutting across them, and not a noodle like this way where you're cutting into it like that along the log. We're cutting flat across the end of the straws, and that's why you get a dust versus a chip and versus a noodle. The geometry of the tooth is designed to efficiently do that. Nothing more, nothing less. I am going to pause you guys. I'm going to rip through the other side of the chain. I got to get you back here because I actually like to file the other side from this side going that way. And I have to kind of get it positioned right and move my 36-inch mill that we were talking about, mills, and we will get this thing back in when I think there's something important. I'll bring you back. All right, so we're back. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a cut. Now that I'm all filed out, we're going to see how much fuel we have left in the saw when we get done, so I can compare it to the cut before and see how sharp I am. I don't have a whole lot of cuts to do here, probably 4 or 5. Typically, I can file the saw right in the mill if it's only marginally like dinged. So if I'm just milling along and all of a sudden it starts to, I got to push on a little bit, I'll just drag the file through it really quick and finish what I'm doing. This case was something different. I don't know what happened. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. And we're going to see how long this cut takes. I'm going to fire up the saw. I'm going to come over. I'm going to check the video time, and then we're going to mill it. We'll see what the finish looks like. We'll see what the fuel looks like on a filed chain, and then we'll make a determination how we're cutting, and we're going to talk about chainsaw milling, and I'll see if I can go through as much of the information as I possibly can. So for those of you who just want to watch milling, this is it for you. And then we're going to go over and we're going to do a chainsaw milling 101 part 2. We fire this thing up and get it warming up. It's been sitting a long time now. I'm just going to check our time so I know how long it took to cut it. So right now we are at 1937. So let's go ahead and make a cut and we'll see how long it takes. This first part right here is going to take a lot because it's full width of the 48-inch setup until I get past here. Then it's going to go past. So this chain was basically wasted on the truck before. It's just self-feeding, right now, like insanely smooth. Put some oil to it, and we'll keep going. I'm not even pushing on jingles. All right, let's take a look at what we got. Time-wise, how long did that take? 28. So somewhere around, let's see, that would have been, it was 19 something. I had to fire it up. Let's call it 20. It was about 8 minutes. About 8 minutes. So it's probably going to be just less than half a tank in here, be my guess. I'll shut the oil off. I'll get you over here in a second. We'll pull the slab off. We'll see what it did. Shut my oil off. All right, so there's marginally more fuel in it than there was last time. And this was a bigger cut. Keep in mind that this cut is getting bigger every time based on the taper of the log on both sides. So this is a bigger cut than that one was. If you can see, my fuel got just less than half a tank versus last cut I used almost a whole tank. It was right down at the bottom. Let's pull this slab off and we will see what the cut looks like. Get a picaroon. Guys, get a picaroon. Did I say get a picaroon? Get a picaroon if you're doing stuff like this. Nope, that's the bottom. We'll get this one flipped over on top of here. Oh, there's dirt in the end of the log. I see what killed my chain last time. Oh my God. I see what killed the chain last time. Yep. Wow. That probably took a pretty good toll on it this time too. This is a big, big slab. All right. We'll get ourselves cleaned off here and then I'll come over. I'll show you the slab. I'll show you what killed my chain last time too. Probably did a pretty good number on it this time too. Probably would have been a 6-minute cut if it hadn't been for what I cut through. The end of this log had mud caked on it. I didn't see it until I took that slab off. That cut pretty good though. Use shingles for shims. Do not use felling wedges for shims. Do not use felling wedges for shims that you have to bang in. Use shingles. I don't care if you have to go to a job site or buy some. Use shingles for your shims. You know what you can do is if you lose one, you can just break them in half and have two. You only need 4 on a big cut. Use shingles for shims. Use shingles for shims. Do not use felling wedges. You're not felling a tree. Use shingles for shims. All right, so here's the big slab. Just kind of give you a bird's eye view here. Make sure, oh yeah, I can see. Oh, there's a bunch of knots. Some real cool grain down the end down here. It's beautiful. There's some sap leaking out. Here is the top cut that I dusted off. Here, to put my hand in here, is how smooth it cut. For full disclosure, I will point out the chatter marks too. I had some chatter marks right here. You see those chatter marks? That was pretty much it. Other than that, it cut really smooth. You know, zoom right in. See how smooth it cut? So over here on the end of the log right here, you see that? That's dirt. So as I'm cutting into this side, I am wiping the chain. There's big dirt all in here. Oh my God, look at that. I am probably going to have to file this chain again. Huge dirt. I might be able to get one more cut out of it. It's just going to take a full tank of fuel. Yeah. So that's what killed my chain. There's dirt on the end of the log here. I don't know if you can see it, encrusted in the sap and shit. That's like running sandpaper across your chain. Um, let's go over and talk about chainsaw milling a little bit. Let's see what my teeth look like. I bet they're cleaner. I haven't even looked. Um, yep. Oh yeah. Look at that. See how my teeth are nice and clean. So this chain pretty much survived that cut. Almost. You can see a little bit of buildup on this tooth right here. But overall, they're pretty clean. That means that my chain stayed pretty sharp. When the chain starts to get dull, you'll get buildup on the teeth. This stayed pretty sharp. A little bit of buildup, especially on the lower teeth. Upper teeth on the left-hand cutters, it seems to be cleaner than on the right-hand cutters. But I think this would be good for one more cut. So let's talk a little bit about chainsaw milling. Where do we start? First of all, these are big giant slabs. Guys, what I'm cutting right here, that just took a little less than 8 minutes. These are big giant slabs. That's 40, almost 44 inches across right there. They are huge. This is a huge log. I'm trying to get my foot in here for scale. These are big wide cuts. Let me pause you guys 1 second. I'm going to get another chainsaw mill up here, and we're going to talk about chainsaw mills. For those of you who just want to see the cut, sign off. All right, this is going to be as much information as I can pack in that I can process right now. In Chainsaw 101 that I shot yesterday, I didn't get into any of the nuance of chainsaw milling, what you need, mills, things like that. So we're going to get into a little bit of that right now. What do you need to start chainsaw milling? It really depends on what you intend to mill. I would say that my professional opinion is that I would get a 36-inch mill with a 42-inch bar and a 90cc saw. That's what I would get. If that's out of your reach, start with a 36-inch mill, 72 to 75 cc saw, 28 to 36-inch bar. That'll cut about a 36-inch bar, and a 36-inch mill will cut about 28 inches wide max. That'll do most of what you want to do. As far as what kind of mill, get a Gramberg. I have done videos comparing the Chinese mills to the Gramberg, what you can do to a Chinese mill to make it a Gramberg, and so on and so forth. However, get a Gramberg. Without thinking about anything else, get a Gramberg. What kind of mill should you get? You should get a Gramberg. Of all the mills out there that are available, what mill should you get? Get a Gramberg. All right, spend the money on the Gramberg. It's going to make your life easier. In my estimation, there isn't anything else. I've tried them all. Get a Gramberg mill, a real one, not a fake one, not a $90, $80, $70 mill. Get a Gramberg mill. What would I get if I could spend a little bit of money and I didn't want to have to modify anything? I didn't want to have to, I want to be able to mill stuff like Bill does. I would start with a 48-inch mill like this with a 42-inch bar. That's going to get you out to about somewhere around 38 to 40 inches. You can cut about 35 with this with a 42-inch mill. You get a little bit wider going to a 48. If you want to cut full 48, You need to get a 48-inch mill with a 56-inch bar. If somebody says, oh, I've got a 4-foot bar, no, they don't. They don't exist. Bars come 36, 52, 56, 28, 24, 5. Those are interchangeable. You call it whatever you want. I don't care. But 36, 42, 52, 56. That's what bars come in. When people say they have a 60-inch bar, I'd like to see it. I think that Canon may make a 60. I'm not sure of that, but it would be the only one that I know of. 56. I'm running a Forester bar. It's they're not cheap, but they're not expensive either. So this is about let's just say a $200 bar, $240 bar. That is a 56. I run full comp rip chain. I will show you. Do not run skip unless you're running a small saw. Full comp cuts faster. So every 3 drive links, if you look underneath, you see the drive links. Every 3 drive links, there are 2 teeth. That is a full comp chain. As many teeth as you can put on a chain. That takes the most amount of wood out of the cut as you go that you can get. If you run a skip chain, it will cut slower. The only reason to run a skip chain is if your saw is not powerful enough to pull a full comp chain, because a full comp chain cuts faster. Or some guys that run skip chains just don't feel like filing an entire bar, which when I filed the other side of that, it probably took me 2 minutes, maybe 3. So really in 5 or 6 minutes, you can file an entire full comp 56-inch bar to sharp to burn an entire half a tank, almost half a tank less than I used on a dull chain. So run full comp. You're going to want to run 10-degree chains. Now, there's no such thing as a rip chain. So people say that all the time, and it drives me crazy. You need to get a rip chain. Well, is that the same as a crosscut chain? No, it's a special chain. No, it's exactly the same chain. It's just filed on its rake angle that we talked about earlier. I'm sorry, on its fleam angle that we talked about earlier at 10 degrees. So if I file this chain over from 10 degrees, like on the tooth in front of my finger here, I can't see again, so I apologize. But on the tooth that's in front of my finger here, that's at 10. If I file that to 25, this is a crosscut chain. It's exactly the same chain. It's just a different fleam angle. You're going to want to run 10 degrees because 10 degrees gives you the best balance between speed and smoothness of cut. You can see from what I showed you that I get on a big ass wide cut, I get a really smooth finish. If I go to 0 degree fleam, so a straight perpendicular tooth to the bar, straight perpendicular cutting edge, I will get a smoother finish. It just takes a lot longer to make the cut. 10 degrees is the best balance between the two on a rip chain. And it doesn't matter if it's 10. It can be 8, it can be 12, it can be anywhere in there. So you can hand file them. As long as you get them close, you're going to get similar results to me. When you buy your setup, you're going to want to get a bar and probably 3 chains. And then I would suggest that you get a roll of chain, and you make up your own chains. That's the best bang for the buck. If you want to go back and look up my videos on making chainsaw chains by hand, they are some of the most watched videos that I have. All you need is a ball peen hammer, an angle grinder, a Sharpie, and something hard to peen over the rivets on. Say I use a little steel plate block, if you'll see it in the videos, or an anvil or whatever. But that's all you need to make your own chains. You don't need a spinner and a breaker and all that stuff. You just don't. Watch my videos. I've never had a chain break that I made. The only chain that I've ever broken, I hit on the Bobcat. And you can go back and watch that video if you want. I was trimming a log on the Bobcat forks, and I hit the saw carriage, the fork carriage, and I broke the chain. I peen over and make all my own chains now. I doubt that I have any chains left from my original, when I started doing this, say 8 or 9 years ago, whether I have any of my old original chains left that didn't hit metal and get destroyed. I doubt I have any of those left. Manufacturer wise, I like the Carlton chain the best. The Archer chain's okay. The only thing, if you go back in my chainsaw milling videos, I hit metal with an Archer chain one time and ripped off something like, I don't know how many teeth, 20 plus teeth. That's never happened to me with a Carlton. I have trash Carlton chains, but never like that. So that's one reason why I like the Carlton chains. Suggest the Carlton chains. I can go through nails and keep going, and maybe even make another cut, especially if it's a sharp chain. Raker depth, you should set at 25 thousandths, and you should use, this is good because I didn't do this in the previous video, a progressive raker gauge, which didn't show this in the previous video. Looks like this. This is what a progressive raker gauge looks like. This is what you should use to set your teeth. I only use the hardwood side, as you can see by all the marks on it and how wiped out it is. That sets my teeth at 25 thousandths sets my rakers to 25 thousandths to the tooth, not to an average of the teeth, but it sets on here and allows me to file the individual raker to the individual tooth, and then this one to this one, and then this one to this one, so that your rakers are set, rakers, drags, depth gauges, whatever you want to call them, are set to the individual tooth and not to an average of a bunch of teeth. And I only use, like I said, the softwood side of this, which is 25 thousandths. Just gives me the smoothest cut, doesn't make my chain overly aggressive, and gives me a nice smooth cut and a relatively fast cut. Bar types. What do I think you should use for a bar? Well, in the long bars like 56 and 52, I would suggest you buy Forester. There are a lot of options, but those prices on these bars go ballistic if you get out of Forester. So if you go to a Canon or a GB in a longer bar, they're 2, 3, 4 times as much as the Forester bar, and I've used these bars a lot. They all need to be dressed. They all need to be ground. It's another consideration you're going to have to make. If you want to go back in my videos about dress, you can search dressing bars by hand. I show how to do it. It's not a big deal. I do it on a belt sander, a belt sander setup. Takes me 30 seconds to dress a bar and get the burrs off it, and back to milling I go. In the shorter bars, you have a lot more options. I like the Oregon bars. Um, just full disclosure, I've used all of them in my shop right now. I will try to name the bars that I have off the top of my head, but I have hundreds of bars in my saw shop. Bars that I would stay away from, rather than naming the bars that I would get, I'll tell you the bars that I would stay away from. I'll tell you the bars that I like the most. Bars that I would stay away from is I would stay away from steel. The steel Roll-O-Matic bars are soft. They're really one of the only bars that I've ever had a problem with. I have that bar in 24, 25, 36, 28, 20, and that's it. So I have 4 different lengths in that specific bar. I do not like them. I like them for cross-cutting. I don't like them for milling because they wear a lot. And one of the only milling bars I've ever used that gave me really poor results. I like the Husqvarna bars. I like Archer. Archer, I think, bang for the buck, is one of the best bars out there. But maybe you don't want to be seen with an Archer bar. I don't know if you're gonna if vanity is your thing, this is not for you. But Archer bars hold up really, really well. I have an Archer 36. I have put miles of wood on that bar. It looks just like the day I bought it, and it cuts smooth every time. I love that bar. I have Sumara. I have Oregon. I have GB. I have Forester. Both the platinum and the regular with the green lettering Forester. Um, I'll think of some others. I like the Oregon bars. I think they're good. Bang for the buck. They're not super expensive. I have 36, 28, 25, 20. That's it. Kind of like the steel bars. I have those same sizes. Um, I like that bar. I don't have a problem with it. Um, the Sumara bar I have in 36. I like that a lot. Most of the time when I mill with a 36 setup, I mill with a Sumara bar. It's a little harder, and it doesn't wear as fast, so I do like that. The Forester Platinum bars, you have to be careful of them because you see some deals on them sometimes where the bar is only like $50. Those aren't ground. They come with raw rails on them. They need to be ground flat. But that bar is unbelievable. It's hard. It almost doesn't wear at all. I don't know what it's made out of, but it almost doesn't wear at all. It's got a black tip and silver bar. Um, the Pharmatech bars or Holtz Forma bars, I will admit I've never used one. They look cool. Price wise, they're cheap if you could get them with no shipping, but when you get them with shipping, they work out to be about the same as any other bar or even a little bit more expensive. Um, I can't talk from firsthand experience about the bar and the quality of the bar other than to say I see a lot of complaints about them on the forums. I see a lot of complaints about the Pharmatech chain. I would not use the Pharmatech chain. But the Pharmatech bars, that's kind of up to you. I think I would stick with the tried and true, but that's up to you. All bars are going to have to be ground and filed and deburred. Saws, like I said, the minimum you're going to want to go with is something in that 72 cc class. I have done videos on what you can search it if you want. What's the minimum I need to mill? And that particular video I did with a ported 68 cc saw. The saw was nasty. I've sold it since then to a logger. It was a Husqvarna 268. I was milling black locust with it on site, making posts for a handicap ramp where I needed a flat side on all of them. That's where I shot that video. It milled awesome, held its power great. If you are anyway money conscious, go with a clone saw. I am partial to the 660s from Holtz Forma because I build them. However, my saws are not what you're going to get. Just so you know that. You are not getting my saw. My saws cost about $500 to build. They are ported. I change out anything that I've found over the years that doesn't last on an initial build. I don't start with the Holtz Forma setup and then wait for things to break. I actually replace all the stuff. I build it from nothing. I get the kit. Um, and I replace everything that I've ever seen failed. I run the 56 millimeter jugs, which makes it 99 cc's instead of the 54 millimeter that you normally get with that saw that is around 92 cc's. However, either one is going to get you into milling and be able to pull this bar pretty much fine. If you go onto the forums and say, well, I've got a Pharmatech 660, what's the maximum bar that I can run? People are going to say, oh, well, 36 is pushing it. That's just bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. 36 is the smallest bar that I run. I do run high output oilers. When I go above my 42-inch bar, I run an auxiliary oiler, as you saw in my setup here. So on my 56, I run auxiliary oiler on my 48-inch mill. On the 36-inch mill, I don't run an auxiliary oiler, and I just run the bar the way it is. And they with a high output oiler on a 660, they oil it fine. You'll be able to mill on a 36-inch bar with a 36-inch mill with a 36-inch bar about 28 inches. So if wide is the way you want to go, just go to a 48 and forget about everything else. If you want to go back to my videos where I modified a Chinese mill over to a Gramberg, you can save yourself a couple of bucks. You can buy a Chinese mill and add Gramberg, order from Gramberg the important parts, add them to the mill, and you do save yourself somewhere around $50, but that's up to you whether you want to go down that route. You still deal with the scales wrong on it, and it's a 1/4 inch off. But regardless, get a Gramberg. What do I have for pack cuts? I'm going to show you how to start on a log in a second, because I didn't do that on this one to get flat cuts, because what will happen is most people will end up with a banana like this. There's a reason for that. I'll show you that in a second. I'll show you my setup. So I have two tool setups. This one here has got my end brackets in it. Like if you watched my video yesterday on the 101, I use those. There are several different sets in there, and every now and then I have to use plywood as well, and gauge blocks. And gauge blocks are, oh, I didn't show this because I did it in the previous video. Gauge blocks are pieces of wood that I've cut to a specific width, like these two 10-quarter ones. And what I do with these, I'll show you, is I use these to set my mill on any important cuts. If I'm making an important cut, like if I'm cutting wood for a customer and he wants something 2 inches thick, well, I set up the mill so that I have two upward facing teeth, like these two here. Can't see through here, so you're going to have to just try to point it in the right direction. This is a right-hand cutter, so it's facing up. This is a right-hand cutter that's facing up. And then you can see this is a left-hand cutter that's facing down. I take the right-hand cutters that are facing up, then I put my block in here on top of those two cutters, and I drop my mill down on top of the block so I get a consistent height both fore and aft. So basically all I do is I put that across the cutters like that. I loosen up my mill, I drop it down on top of the blocks, and I tighten it down, both on this end and on this end. Whatever width I want to cut, these just happen to be 10-quarter, what I'm cutting right now. So I have just about every different thickness in here, from 3/4 to at least, I don't know, 16-quarter I think is in there too. I can see 8/4 over there, but all different just chunks of wood that were lying around the shop. I ripped on the table saw down to a specific width and marked them with a Sharpie, and I use those for setting my mill. My tool pack that I take whenever I'm going out with chainsaws, period, whether it's cutting down trees or blocking up firewood or whatever, this is my tool pack. This is a Stanley pack that I got when I was a finish carpenter working on a 5-story low-income housing project where I had to go up and down stairs all day. This has every tool in it that I need to fix a saw, build a saw, fix the mill, whatever. If I need a tool that's not in here, after I use it, it stays in here. And it has over the years. It's got files, it's got compasses for scribing, Phillips heads, flatheads, carb adjustment tools, plugs, filters. It's got recoil assemblies in the bottom, oil squirter, my brackets to hold the ladder down, screws, you name it, a tachometer, everything that I need to run a chainsaw, fix a chainsaw, tune a chainsaw that there is that I know of is in this pack. This goes with me wherever a saw goes. Let's talk about starting a saw on the log, because this is important to get flat cuts. I'm going to pause you 1 second, get my mill over here. Okay, I'm going to do it with the little mill just because I'm getting tired. I'm going to zoom you or point you down so you can see what I'm talking about. When you come onto the log, what happens with most people, what happened with me in the beginning, is that you end up, after you make 6, 7 cuts, you'll end up with a log that looks like this, because you will come on at an angle like that and you will drop off the end at an angle like this. What you need to do is you need to use this brace that's in the middle and get it flat on the log. So I need the log to be, before my chain enters the log, this to be flat, this to be flat, and this to be flat. And then I push in from there until I get the full bar inside the wood. And then you're off to the races. On the way out on the other end, as you're coming to the end of the cut, you want to put down pressure on the back of the mill as the mill's exiting the wood. So you keep this bar flat on the wood until your bar exits the wood. And then you can pull it out. And that's really important. So as you get to the end of the cut, you get all your pressure and pushing that way. All your pressure on this. Here, I'll do it like this. So I'm pushing along. I get all my pressure on here as the saw is coming forward. And this, I'm holding this bar right here flat on the wood, holding the back down until the chain exits so that you don't drop off like that and make a rounded off end. Because if you do, you will compound that and make it worse and worse and worse. Same thing starting out in the log. When you're starting out in the log, you want to keep it flat until you get in, so that you don't angle up into the cut like this. If you angle up into the cut like this, you will end up rounding the front side, and then eventually you'll have slabs that look like this. So that's a little bit important too. Um, these are big. These are big slabs. They don't get much bigger. What you watch me mill is a monster slab. You don't need any more than my setup. If you want to go out and you want to buy a 661, I can tell you, or an 880, I can tell you that my saw here, let's get it over like this, and I'll flip it up. My saws, my 5 of them, my 5 mill saws, are the ones that I build are more powerful than what you're going to get at Steel. This saw probably puts out the horsepower of an 880. When something breaks, I have to fix it, sure, but they are ridiculously reliable. They start ridiculously well. They pull a 56-inch bar, full comp, through a full width cut all day. I've milled white oak, max of this mill, 15 feet long slabs all day until I was done. So, I don't know how many of you out there are going to be milling 40-inch wide hardwoods, but this saw will do it. Do I think a regular Farmertech, if you order a Farmertech, and they have good dealer support, or I don't know if you want to call them dealers or not, but dealer support in the U.S. now, Blue Saws, bluesaws.com, they sell Farmertech here in the States. There's another company, I can't think of their name right now, but they will pull this bar and chain and get you through this cut. Will they cut as good as my saw? No, but they will cut you through this cut. Is it going to take longer? Sure. Are you going to run out of fuel? Probably not. If you get a little bit longer, you're going to get really close. But the important part is keeping your chain sharp. You've already seen sharpening. Running full comp, I think, is really important. The way it engages the wood, and you have so many teeth engaged at the same time, it gives you a really super flat cut, and it cuts really fast. I don't think you need to go to skip until you get really, really, really long. So if you want to run a 70-inch setup on a Farmertech saw, and I'm not going to talk about my saws because I think my saw would still pull a 70-inch setup fine. But a Pharmatech saw, if you want to run a 70, a 60, 70-inch setup, probably would have to go to skip chain. It's going to take you more than a tank of gas to get through a cut like that, but you can still do it. That's the important part. So, you know, if you want to mill some really big, super wide shit, you want to get a big, huge mill, you can still go with a Pharmatech saw. You just need to run skip chains or hyper skip chains. Either way, it's just going to take you a couple tanks of fuel. It's going to be, you know, a long cut. You got to go nice and slow. But on big, huge cuts like that, that's kind of the name of the game. I mean, on cuts like I just made, I can pretty much rip right through it. So I am going to touch up my chain in the mill quickly and get ready to make another cut. I had planned on finishing this log today. I've got at least 2 more cuts. I need to measure out the board footage on those 2 slabs and mark them. I can measure the board footage on the one that I haven't cut yet right now and mark it. I like to mark all my slabs before, so when I go to drop them off, I have the board footage right on them. It looks like 1, 2, 3 more cuts is going to be most of this log. I probably can do another cut right now. It's just going to get me real close to tank of fuel. I'll probably go ahead and do that. I'll probably video it too. I don't know if I will finish this log today. I don't know what time it is. I don't know where we're getting time-wise during the day here. But I'm starting to get a little tired, to be honest with you. You know, chainsaw milling's a lot of work, guys. There's no 2 ways about it. And the only time that I chainsaw mill is when my bandsaw mill won't cut the log. So I'm only chainsaw milling now. Big, big, big stuff. But this log right here will pay for my whole trip to Norwood that I just took for the last 5 days. So I want to get it done, get these slabs dropped off, get paid, and I can move on to something else. I got to cut some more flooring for Jesse Keys and everything else. So if you have any questions for me, you know, maybe PPE, I wear chaps. The only reason I wear chaps is because I have my wedge pack on here that I can put my shingles in, and most of the time I'm crawling around in the mud and it keeps mud off my pants. I don't think that there's any other reason to wear chaps in this application. I don't think that you have to worry about cutting yourself. The chain and the bar are fully encased in the wood. You're not going to hurt yourself. There's no reason to wear a helmet. You're not in any danger of having anything fall on your head. However, if you are in danger of having things fall on your head, I'm all for you wearing a helmet if you want. Ear protection, sure. It's full squirt for 8 minutes. We burn fuel in this application unlike anybody else. Milling this log, I'll burn over 1 gallon of gas in a couple hours. Really, without videoing an hour, I would burn 1 gallon of fuel in an hour with no problem. Guys that are out in the woods, 1 gallon of fuel lasts them all day. That are out in the woods falling timber, 1 gallon of fuel lasts them all day. We burn it in an hour with no problem. I burned 2 gallons of gas on milling jobs. That only took me a couple hours. These saws are pumping gas through them at full throttle from full to empty every pass. That's unlike anything else. Nobody else does that. No other chainsaw application does that. So, you know, when people talk about burning fuel, you don't burn fuel anything like milling. We burn fuel, way more fuel, way faster. I run Red Armor fuel mix. As far as I'm concerned, it is the only mix that I would run. I've run everything. I can tell you what I would not run. I would not run premix fuel, the stuff that's $25 a gallon that you buy in the steel store. I would not run that. The majority of the problem saws that I get into my saw shop that won't idle and won't run, it's because the premix fuel went bad. And I would not run steel mix. Steel mix runs really, really dirty. You run it in your saw, take off your muffler, your exhaust port's totally carboned up. When I run Red Armor, I could run this saw for 4 or 5 years. It will start up after sitting for 2 years. It runs perfectly clean. When I do take a top end off or a muffler off, it's perfectly clean. There's no carbon buildup at all. It's got fuel additives in it to keep the fuel from spoiling. Um, I can't recommend it enough. The only mix that I will run is Red Armor. That's it. Period. I will not run anything else until they stop selling it, and then I'll come up with something else. But I would not run premix, and I would not run steel of everything. That pretty much covers it. I think I've given a lot of info. I'm trying to get to where I was in the other video. I know this one just went over an hour. You already saw how to set up. Sucked a piece of sawdust off my glove in my throat. You already saw how to set up on a log. You've already seen the mill passes. The important part about the mill passes, if you don't want your wood to come out looking like a beaver ate it off, is to keep your saw smooth and steady, not do a lot of this. Sometimes you have to move the tail end, your power head end, to get around bumps and stuff. That's the only time that you see me do it. Other than that, you just want to let it run, let it feed, let it cut. You'll get nice smooth cuts like me. It'll cut the fastest like that. It won't look, any of you have been on a forum before, you've seen guys that milled a log and it just looks absolutely horrible. You know, you got to keep your bars dressed, got to keep the chain sharp, and no movement. Boom. Keep your engine speed up. Don't bog your saw out. You want the flow of sawdust that shoots out of the saw to stay even. If you push too hard and that flow of sawdust goes kind of limp dicks down, you're pushing too hard. If you're revving the saw and the saw is revving out high and there's like almost no sawdust coming out, you're not engaged in the wood. You want to stay engaged in the wood. Nice, steady, consistent flow shooting out of the saw the whole time. That means that you're milling the most effectively, the most efficiently, like you see in my video when you watch me mill this log. That's what you're looking for. And you want to meter your pressure for that. Sometimes when the saw is cutting great, you're pulling the saw back. Sometimes when the saw is getting dull, you're pushing the saw forward. Either way, you want to keep the saw engaged in the cut the entire time and keep that outflow consistent and keep your engine RPMs up. You want to stay up above 10,000 RPMs. Now, you don't need to have an RPM meter. You'll be able to know where your power band is when you run it. You need to stay up in that power band and not bog the saw down below it and also not rev out the top. I do set my top RPMs conservative. So these saws, I can set them at 13.5, but I don't. I set them between 12.8 and 13.3. So they'll never rev out to 13.5. And the bottom, you have to set the bottom the way the bottom is for trigger response and 2,800 RPMs. That's just there is no other way. So the top side, though, I do set it a little bit conservative. These make the best power at when the top side is not super lean. So the higher your RPMs, the more lean the saw is running. My saws, I set them between 12.8 and 13.3, right in there. That's where I get the most fuel, the most cooling, the most power, and I don't have to worry about over revving the saw. So that's everything I got. I know it's a lot of information. If you guys have any questions, hit me up. I answer everything back. I am going to make another pass. I'll probably video it, and we'll compare the fuel without filing. It's going to be kind of a pain in the ass pass. I think it's going to really wear on my shoulder because I think I'm going to have to push on it. But it should get through in about 8 minutes and should burn pretty much a whole tank of fuel is my guess. And then I'm going to have to sharpen again, I think, because of that mud in the end of that, the mud in the end of the log. So that's it. And I appreciate the watch as always. I know this is a long video and a lot of information. If you want to search milling, go way back in my videos, way back years in my videos. You'll be able to see milling till it comes out your ears. You'll be able to see building saws, modding saws, filing chains, milling, all kinds of crazy shit. But those are all way back in my timeline. So you can go back and watch them if you want. I would appreciate it. And for now, This is Pirate Solutions out.